I thought this show was horrific.
Okay, spoiler.
I don't want to watch Genesis on Saturday. That's where I'm at.
Interesting. So I'm fascinated in hearing what you have to say about it because you're somebody who watches week to week. And like, was this worse than a typical edition of TNA Impact?
Much
really?
Worse. Oh yeah.
Okay, I'm very curious to hear in what ways. Like this to me felt like exactly I think what I would have expected out of like at this point this level of promotion.
I thought that first hour was just dreadful, and it kind of set the tone for everything. First of all, I don't know what the commercial inventory was, but it felt so unbelievably long. I felt for this crowd, you had 2,500 people that had come to this show, and they were a pretty great crowd, but they were also vocal about the things they did not want. The amount of, like, first of all, they got 3 matches on this show. They got the announcement that, first of all, we got the 3 matches. We got just so many. I understand this is an introduction that they were treating this as. The amount of video packages and pre-tapes that loaded this up. I just hated the pacing of the commercials. It felt like we'd have a big long break, come back, the match starts, and then boom, a minute in, we're going to like a 4-minute break. It felt like these were long breaks that to me took all the momentum out of things. From just a consumer standpoint, like if you were watching this, the way last week, a lot of this show had been set up that Nick Nemeth has the Call Your Shot Gauntlet trophy. He's going to cash in on one of these guys. He's going to be waiting in the wings. That was like the final visual last week of Impact. Nick Nemeth is nowhere to be found on this show. He's not mentioned. He's not teased. They literally announced the main event of this Genesis pay-per-view in the final 30 seconds, where Tom Hannafan just casually says, well, Kazarian gets a rematch on Saturday. You just tell me your interest in the show going in and kind of what you were... So some of your bigger takeaways before we break down the show.
I was interested because it felt like a big edition of the show. I'm interested, even if I don't necessarily follow the product, if you can get me invested in somebody's story by telling me that what they're currently facing is very high stakes and they have a lot riding on it. You know, and this goes for like, I don't know, like low level MMA. You know, if you could sell me on somebody's story and somebody's motivation, I'm going to be interested. And tonight was, you know, certainly very high stakes for the company as a whole. And for that reason, I was very interested to see what they would produce to maybe, hopefully, I mean, grab some attention from like already a very oversaturated professional wrestling market in North America on television. So I was very curious to see what they would do differently, how they would attempt that. Yeah.
Let me ask you these 2 questions before we go in. What's your interest level in watching Genesis on Saturday?
It's very low.
Was it any higher than when you went into this show?
Oh, well, I mean, at the very least, I know what the card is. So,
apparently we did not.
Yeah, I guess not.
60 seconds ago. So
maybe I wasn't paying close enough attention. But like it probably rose by like maybe like 5 to 10%.
Okay, how about tuning into Impact next week? I will give them the positive. They did have a lineup for next week's show. I thought that was a positive, rather than just tune in next week. We'll be back.
So much of it, I think, comes down to just like the roster that they have. And also like this show to me represented like their ability to tell me what Impact is about, what this show is about, what I could expect to tune in for every single week if I chose to do it. And the vibe I got, the sort of like definition of Impact that was sold to me was that this is a place where you can see a lot of ex WWE talents from like, you know, like 5 to 10 years ago. Like if you missed like Mara Sade or like I don't know.
Hey, are you a
like,
fan of Dark Winds? Do you like Dark Winds?
Oh, you mean the AMC TV show?
Yeah, the show that we got like 4 separate shots of these guys that had to sit through the show in the front row.
Like this told me it was some sort of like, it felt like some sort of like nether realm of the WWE universe where like people just like, you know, once they leave that part of the universe, they're sent to like TNA to continue to exist. And in some cases, I mean, in the best case scenario, it represents a way to reinvent themselves and to perhaps like build some renewed momentum, like you've seen in the past with people like a Drew Galloway or like you might currently be seeing with Lei Ying Lee, you know, somebody who is certainly gaining a whole lot more from like the TNA experience than just simply rehashing what they were doing in WWE. That's the best case scenario. In other cases, I mean, it kind of feels like, it's just like a place for people to go to because they're not in WWE. That was sort of the vibe that they gave me, with the exception, the big exception being Santana, who I thought came across really well coming out of tonight's show and tonight's main event as somebody who's a fresh and very capable lead character.
That they definitely have in Mike Santana. The support on this show, I'm going to be more critical of this show because I thought this was one of the lower end impacts that I have watched, and it was also the one with the highest stakes, I think, attached to it.
Well, let me also ask you then, like, what, other than your duty as a reporter, like, what do you think the appeal of Impact has been up until this point? Like, why would somebody choose to watch this show?
I think generally, their stories are hit and miss. I think that generally they have gotten a, you know, it's funny because we did our awards this past week, and I was like asking myself this similar question because TNA, I think I had Mike Santana as most improved. They don't come up, like, they're not the worst of anything. They're not the best of anything. It's like, I can't go through any of their matches. There were some very good matches, but any that were like the best in the world, is there any wrestler on their roster that I would categorize as among the elite wrestlers in the world? I would not. Like, it is a promotion that has sort of, its identity is this underdog promotion that has had all the advantages that so many other companies have never had. They have had just amazing backers throughout their entire history, from you know, when the Jarretts had to bring in Dixie Carter and such. Like, they were able to absorb so many losses that other companies couldn't, and yet they were always in this underdog role. And the underdog role, it almost was as though the wrestling world had written them off, and justifiably so. And it's just been this, they've clawed their way back, and they have a meaningful story attached to them this last year or so. But again, it's been greatly enhanced by the connection to WWE, but they have also been able to take some characters and made them, like, turn them into like reclamation projects. Like, we compare, like, the Hardys have been big difference makers for TNA. They are as over as anybody else in this company. I would say Santana, the Hardys, like, they are super popular. And I think the appeal of TNA is it is a bit of a different flavor of wrestling. I don't think they do any of the wackiness that used to be a hallmark of TNA at this point. And generally, like, their top main event stories are, you know, they're well thought out, and you have these long chases for your titles, and you have a very compelling figure, I think, in Mike Santana.
When you say it offers a different flavor of pro wrestling, like, what exactly do you mean by that? Different from what?
I would say that the flavor, yeah, that's probably
because the flavor feels very much like WWE Light, which has always been TNA's identity, up in, like, with the exception of maybe the Knockouts division in the mid 2000s and also the X division, right?
Yeah, I go more than just like the in-ring portion, because I think the rest of the world has caught up to, like, if you look at the X division or their proliferation of like the Knockouts division, like, the rest of the world has caught up and has, quite frankly, past TNA in those regards. Those are not, to me, like, standout aspects anymore. They do have an ability, I think, that they can go further with some of their stories, whether it is the out there stuff with the Hardys that they will do. Like, they have an audience that is certainly very loyal to TNA, but I question, like, how much bigger that audience is going to be able to grow. And I look at a show like this, we're in a bigger network in AMC. I don't know. I didn't watch this show tonight thinking, like, this is really going to expand the base, or you tune in. And I think that's what you would feel like. Here are a lot of ex-WWE talent that we are bringing in. Here is a heel GM character that we're going to introduce. Here is everything right down to the end credits that just feels like this is WWE,
they didn't
but a lot
before?
smaller.
They didn't have end credits
no,
before?
those were new. Those were newly added tonight.
Amazing.
Like all of it, like even like a crowd of 2,500, it's like all of this is just like, this is just WWE, but a lot smaller. And that was the overall feel I had of this.
Yeah. So I mean, the fact that it's WWE, like, to me has always been like, it's understandably, like, you know, debuting on Spike or like just any of these like big sort of moves TNA has made in its history. It makes sense why you would want to like feel, you know, like if your goal is to feel like an alternative at a certain standard, it makes sense why you would replicate so much of like what the leader has done. But it's also been, you know, to people that are watching TNA, a big part of the reason for turning off the product, because you're never going to be WWE. So why would somebody watch a lesser version of it? Whereas like AEW has, like, I think, drawn a lot more distinction between what it is versus WWE, while retaining its high standard of production quality. But like now though, you can make the argument that like TNA should be WWE light, because it is sort of on a similar level, or at least in sort of like theory, to an NXT, as almost a feeder system for the WWE. So like, you're trying to attract WWE fans, should you not be more WWE like? That is also to say though, tropes like having a heel GM aren't even done in WWE anymore. Like they're like tropes from WWE of like 10 years ago.
They're the hand-me-down tropes.
Yeah, right.
Like, and that's the lift, and that's also the ceiling that TNA is going to feel. There is no tribalism when it comes to WWE and TNA audiences, because WWE has blessed this promotion for you, the WWE consumer. If that is all you watch, here is something that we approve of that you can watch, and we're going to make it palatable for you to watch this. However, there's a ceiling. You're never going to grow an audience as that little brother that TNA does feel like, especially tonight, felt as though it's becoming. And that's something that's going to be very hard to curb regardless, when like you can see where this trajectory is going. Like Leon Slater does not feel like he is going to be long for TNA. Joe Hendry has moved on. And when you get just like courtesy appearances by your big brother, like that's what this show was. Like this isn't quite NXT. It's something different than NXT. But hey, if you can somehow carve in 2 more hours of your week to watch more pro wrestling, here it is.
It's NXT without like unknowns, and with people that you know, but people that were not, you know, like big stars on the main roster.
Throughout the month of January, you have the chance to lock in your subscription at the Post Wrestling Cafe for all of 2026 before the price increase takes effect February the 1st. Simply sign up before February 1st and you will lock in that price all year long. If that's not enough, this month we have the annual Best and Worst of show as we get together with the Poison Rana crew to look back at 2025. We're also doing live watch-alongs of the Royal Rumbles from 1990 and 1995 with Brandon from New Jersey, a retrospective on the Tanahashi-Okada rivalry, plus reaction to Wrestle Kingdom 20, a review of TNA's debut on AMC, and much more, including TNA Genesis, UFC 324. It's all found at postwrestlingcafe.com.